Hi, I'm Deneva Halphen, Commissioner for District 1, the North Shore area. I'm one of your commissioners here at the Commission. We're here today to talk about the changes that we made to the Louisiana Real Estate Residential Agreement to Buy or Sell, along with the changes to the residential property disclosure as of January 2026.
So I'm Rick Roberts. I'm a OG member of this collaborative that started almost 13 years ago, I believe. We changed the law for a unified statewide contract. Of course, like I said, it's a collaborative effort between Louisiana Real Estate Commission, Louisiana Realtors, and of course, we get input from all the stakeholders, whether they're agents, brokers, managers, title attorneys, even members of the public. So it is truly a collaborative effort to come and get this form to you. Of course, it changes every 2 years. We meet, we talk about and discuss the different suggestions that we have from our members, and it's a living, breathing document that we change according to what we see in the field and what our suggestions we get.
Yeah, it's a great effort from everyone across the state, because what's relevant to us in the southern part of the state is very different from what happens in the northern part of the state. So it's important to have that feedback and collaboration with everyone to make sure that we have everything covered for the statewide documents.
So we get started. We'll give you some of the changes, some of the things that we modified and amended on the two current forms.
We're going to start with the agreement to buy or sell. We're going to start with the residential agreement to buy or sell. And, you know, every year, or every 2 years, excuse me, we make these changes. And what I'd say to you is that this year is basically a reorganization and a realignment of what's already there. We did a good bit of cleaning up. I think you'll appreciate the changes that were made, and we're going to take you through those pieces now.
Yes, there's limited substantive changes. Mostly it's like Dee said, comprehensively reorganized and better aligned with the flow of how the contract should go. So anyways, I guess to start, if you'll notice on page 1, we took out some extraneous listing and selling firm, which seemed to be redundant, and I don't know exactly how we did that and left that for the last 2 iterations, but we did. We also deleted day. If you notice, you just have a date and time. So day was really not necessary. If you can figure out a calendar and see what it corresponds to, that solved that.
That was, and we got a tremendous amount of feedback on that piece. So changing
Which-
that one small thing did make a big difference,
It was
I have
just
to say, on this piece.
Some added information that we really didn't need for most of us who know what the day is when you put in a date.
Electronic notice, that was one of the things for me. The electronic notice, when you talk about where we've come with technology and what it was there for at the onset of why we did it, it's been pared down quite a bit from where we started a few years ago. So you'll notice that that piece has shrunk quite tremendously.
So before we get through each page, some reorganization of sections. If you'll notice on your current contract, buy-sell agreement, of course, additional terms and conditions have been moved up to lines 55 to 64. Appraisals now on lines 262 to 271. No substantive changes there. Home warranty did move 290 to 299 from its previous location. And regulatory notices moved toward the back of the contract. Again, no substantive changes there, just some reorganization, just with the flow of the contract that seemed to make more sense. The line in property description, line 16, we did revise it to include only installed hardware, replacing associated hardware, which was an attempt to clarify included items that must be physically installed. So we did have some feedback on that. And
Let's give an example. What are you talking about, Rick?
installed like a whole house generator.
Whole house generator.
Some were under the misconception that they could take that because it wasn't installed. Well, it surely is installed, and again, instead of associated hardware, that would be installed.
Yeah, we might need to clarify those type of things before we list, right?
There's many
Yeah.
examples of that, and we constantly every year get feedback on
Yeah.
what's installed, what's not. So
There's, I think, close to everything but the kitchen sink is in that section, right?
pretty much,
And now we're saying installed, not associated. Okay.
we can thank our wonderful attorneys that we love so much that maybe we have to include some things. But anyway, it is there. So installed versus associated. Mineral rights, we tried to make that a little bit more palatable for most with a simple yes, no. If the seller's reserving, yes, no. If it's a no, then you pretty much can stop there. If it's a yes, then you have to go on and further explain what exactly the implications are, how much, who's keeping them, so on. But If they're not, then you can simply check no and move on.
Correct. I like that. I did like that piece. It gives lots of clarity to that whole piece because we do get lots of questions on that.
Absolutely. Moving on to financing section, cash buyers. So
I have to say, this was a hot button for Rick, so I'm gonna let him go off onto this one.
it's a substantive change because it's things that we typically ask for that maybe we don't always remember to include. So in this, in lines A68 to 75, submission of proof of funds within a specified time frame. So before, there was no time frame unless you included it. The identification of acceptable documents, which they can be, there's 3 different things that are expressed here that could be used. And then the authorization for a seller to verify such documents directly with the issuing financial institution. Now, we did get a lot of pushback on that in the sense that the financial institution, whether it's a bank, whether it's a JP Morgan account, whatever the case may be, where you show them proof of funds for cash, they're not part of this contract. They don't need to participate in that.
Correct.
We understand that. However, if I have a buyer and they're using that, we should know beforehand that that institution is going to participate and help us satisfy the terms of this contract. If they're not, my suggestion is get another financial institution because we need to give the seller some level of comfort that those funds are somewhere that can be ascertained and accessed, if they're using a cash buyer condition of the contract.
You know, I think on this piece, and we talked a lot about this when we had the meetings and we had everyone in the room. I think it's important. Communication is key. If you're not communicating how this transaction is being handled with both parties, that's when you run into trouble. So make sure that, especially on this piece, we all know that there's sadly some not so honest people out in the world pretending to be an actual buyer, and what you're presented, you have to feel comfortable with what they're presenting you with, because this does give a level of protection to the seller. And they needed that, especially when someone's coming and saying, okay, I'm gonna give you cash for this property. So I think that's an important piece, but I think communication's the key in it.
It was just an attempt to not have agents ad-libbing that section and maybe forgetting some things that might be relevant, so. Anyway, that is a substantive change in the financing, actually on the cash portion. We also did remove a buyer paid discount points, because I don't know about your experience, I've never had buyer paying any discount points. And if they choose to do so, you can put it in the additional financing terms in the blanks there. So
Yeah, I think it's been a little while since we had discount points. I agree with that.
We did. Deposit form, we did some formatting there. We removed some lines that seemed to be kind of redundant, so now the check box was removed from list, the check boxes for different types of deposits were removed, and you can just simply fill in which one it's gonna be and not have to keep putting the numeric number in behind each
Yeah, the same
line.
information multiple times. This is probably one of my favorite pieces and favorite changes that we made this go-round, is the fact that, yeah, it's one deposit, you put it in once, and you move forward. Yay.
Okay, here's another big one we did change, is the deposit addendum checkbox was removed from the list of addendums.
Whoosh.
Now, I know you got some strong feelings on this. So, in this current form, does a licensee need to have a deposit addendum attached?
No.
Okay, so where would we need to maybe put that in the list of addenda further down?
If there was a specific document required by a third party who's holding that deposit, that's where you'd need to add that as one of the addenda. And that's only if it's required by that third party. We have covered all of that piece if it's being held by a third party in the actual contract, so there's no need for an addendum when it comes to this. And oh goodness, we've had lots of conversations about this piece. It is not a required addendum.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Past iterations
That's
it was.
correct.
We built it into the contract. If there's no specific deposit addendum from title company, from builder, from whomever, then there's no more you need to include here. If you need to include it, you can check that on the list of addenda and put it in the deposit addendum, sure.
Correct. We like it.
Okay, we went over, all right, private water and sewer. Really just provision stating there's no private water and sewer service to the primary residence, was just basically repositioned and improved for some prominence, nothing really substantive there.
No, I think that was a pretty small change.
Yeah. Buyer broker, you want to do that?
Buyer broker.
Another substantive change.
Yes, it is. Lots of requests since changes were made, and we still continue to have comments, questions, concerns regarding this. But it was important to include it in the contract, well, excuse me, the agreement, I should say. Buy-sell agreement. We needed to have that included. So lots of conversation again about this piece. It is the first version that has this in it. Will it need to be tweaked? Probably. But we thought that we covered, how should I say it, Rick? We covered all of the main key pieces that you need to have.
We covered Louisiana law, for one.
Yes, correct.
Which was first and foremost because, again, this is for all licensees, not just realtors. So
Correct.
it also was an attempt to cover some of those who are realtors who are familiar with the NAR settlement. It covers those components as well, which, again, specifically, it states seller agrees to pay a specific amount at closing toward buyer broker compensation. There's no mention of commission here, okay? Payment will be made from seller sales proceeds, not by the listing broker. Another big one, that was NAR component, not necessarily Louisiana law. Any shortfall must be covered by the obligated party at closing. So whoever's obligating himself to pay the commission, they need to come up with those funds. Compensation is not set by law and is fully negotiable, which it always has been, but now it's spelled out on the contract for you. And of course, compensation not exceed any amount established by the buyer broker representation agreement, which is again a requirement under Louisiana law.
But is not made a part of this agreement.
Correct, exactly.
We get asked that question quite a bit. It is not made a part of this contract.
So that would be the other substantive change on our new buy-sell agreement that was added and was not there before, but of course precipitated by NAR settlement and Louisiana law change.
Absolutely. And then we have relocation and modernization of notices. We have mold-related hazards, the offender notification, flood hazard, and choice of law. All of those have been updated, all the links have been updated, so all of those pieces now flow quite nicely in one section. And the last piece we have is the offer expiration procedure. That was a mouthful, get that out. The checkboxes previously associated with date and time were removed. The expiration date and time are now inserted directly on the designated line, simplifying the execution of that piece.
And of course, we got rid of the day.
The day,
So you
again.
don't have to put the day anymore. Members, you're welcome.
But you know, Rick, we're talking about the changes we made to this agreement, and I think we should go back. It should not go unsaid. Let's go back to the first page.
Okay,
I probably should have done this at the beginning.
let's do it.
What's an annotation of an offer, Rick?
Oh, well, you get into
Yeah.
something that
I
we
gotta add this in a little bit. I gotta add it in.
On the first page, it simply suggests the signature of the designated agent receiving the agreement, where you sent it, and when that agent gets it, they would annotate receiving it and put a date and time.
And that has to be on every offer that's presented to you as a licensee, right?
As far as the commission's concerned, yes, right?
Okay,
You would know that?
I like, I'd like to remind everyone of that piece. It seems to be forgotten on a regular basis, so I feel an obligation to bring that up
One of
while we're
those-
talking about this.
Still, I'm not on the commission anymore, but I'm sure one of the most common violations y'all see every
It
month.
absolutely is. So I don't feel like we could do this video and bring a message to you without pointing that out.
So Commissioner Halphen, let's move it forward then. That's on
Yeah.
page one, if I'm the listing agent, I received the offer. If you go to page 11, members, there's also a spot where it says this offer was presented to, and that might not be the same time, but it should be relatively soon, where I presented it to my client, whether it's a seller or a buyer, if it's an offer to purchase or an offer to sell. Oftentimes that gets overlooked as well.
Absolutely. Those two pieces are key, and we struggle with that on a daily basis in
And
our office.
They haven't changed for the last 2 iterations at least, but we still get a lot of pushback and misinformation out there.
So Rick, someone sends you an offer at 5 o'clock on Friday. What do you do?
I'll sign it annotated received at 5:01 and send that back to the agent submitting.
And then once you present it to your seller is when you mark on page 11, correct?
That's when
That
I
you've presented it.
probably either scan it or forward the email with of course, the seller's net sheet, mind you, and a brief description of what the offer is. When I send that email, that's when I'll annotate what time that was sent to my seller.
I like that.
It's
Simple.
too easy.
Pretty simple.
And you fulfilled your obligation.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. We couldn't do this without bringing that piece to you. Okay.
So in final, again, not very many substantive changes, but we tried to enhance the clarity, the usability, and then the flow of the contract, on how it works in different sections where they should probably go. Other than the buyer broker section and the cash portion, those are really only substantive changes that we made on this version.
But I think the flow, key pieces, I really think we've done a phenomenal job, or the team, the group that we brought together did a phenomenal job.
We've done more of that this go-round than we have in years past.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So we hope you enjoy it and write many of them.
Thank you. Now we're going to transition on over to the property disclosure and the changes that we made effective January 1, 2026. And we are going to give you a brief rundown of the changes that we made and basically a little bit of overview and rationale behind it.
And again, similar to the buy-sell agreement, this is going to improve clarity, reduce some redundant language and terms and things we didn't need, and then make it more complete for a seller to fill out.
Want to go into the overview of it?
Sure.
The property disclosure form has been revised for some clarity and to reduce some redundancy. And actually to help with the seller and when they're completing this document, to help it flow, easier to understand, if you will. I don't think there's any huge changes to this piece this go round.
No, it's similar to the buy-sell agreement. There's not very many substantive changes, but we did change the preamble, the first paragraph a little bit. One of the things we did do is the definitions of known defect and defect have been removed from their prior location, have been relocated. They've been consolidated with the key definitions, which kind of made a better flow for all the definitions to be in one spot.
I'd like to know, actually, how many people knew that that was a duplicate? Because both of those pieces were duplicates. They were on separate pages, but they were exactly the same.
Yeah.
Probably not, right?
I don't know, when it slipped past all of us too. It's not a good thing.
So I don't know that it was that glaring, but it did clean it up and might have even gave us a little extra space, right?
I think it did, yes. We try to, I promise you, you might not believe it, but we do try to reduce the amount of pages, but unfortunately, we've kept them the same.
Yeah.
But we haven't.
We haven't added any.
Haven't added any. There you go, members. There's some redeeming qualities here.
We're trying to get a little better by that.
So, one change that you'll see in the property disclosure now that it kind of carries through on a few other things is, starting in the first section, the sellers are now prompted to include the year the property was purchased. And that change, as opposed to the amount of years, was suggested, so now we don't have to recomplete the form if we go from one calendar year to the next, or it starts at the beginning of the year, you put 2026, and then it doesn't sell in 27. So is it 14 years old or 15 years old? Well, now we have the date when either the property was purchased, the roof was put in service, what have you. It's got the date it was put in service, and then you can do the calculation to find out how many years it is exactly.
That's key, though.
That's brought forward on a lot of different parts, and we can go over them briefly.
That made it so much easier than how long have you owned the property. Do you know how many people go, I don't remember? But they do remember what year they bought it.
For instance, structure age, roof age, those are important, especially now with insurance companies getting very particular about the age of a roof. If you put the date of service, it was put in service, then you can calculate the years and decide whether or not you need to maybe factor that into the equation.
I think it's much easier for a seller to remember when something was installed as to how long you've owned it or when was it installed. Those things, or I shouldn't say when was it installed, but how old it is. That was key, and we always had that question come up time and time again, and it is. With insurance being the way that it is right now, how old is your roof is a key piece. Sure. Without a doubt.
Another, for insurance claim history, we did expand some of that and to put a loss history there, any repair work that was done, and then most importantly, payment history.
Yes.
Because sometimes people get insurance, they get a settlement, and they don't always do what they were paid to do. So that would be something that you'd have to either convey or disclose if there was an insurance claim, you could maybe go deeper in questioning about, so we try to do that on this property disclosure.
Yeah, because I don't think that when a seller goes to sell their property, they're necessarily thinking about an insurance claim they made 5 or 10 years ago. But this question being on there prompts them to go, oh, I remember that, I need to put that on there. So whether they made the repairs, didn't make the repairs, it's just a trigger point to help give information to the next person having to go out and look for insurance.
That's
So
right.
I think that's important.
Next section we have is water heater information.
Not hot water heater?
Well,
I
you
know,
know,
I had to
well-
poke at you. I had to poke at you.
and you did. So we were remiss in not including hot water heaters because we didn't really know how to quantify a hot water heater. But water heaters, yes, we did. And in doing so, we have how many, the year they were put in service, if known, and the type of each unit, because a lot of gas, a lot of electric. For the water heater,
Tankless water heater
Tankless
or
as well.
a traditional water heater. That is a particular item that bothers Mr. Roberts.
we've got plenty of members, vendors.
It's
hot
an
water heater.
avenue by which the water is heated, correct?
It should be a cold water heater. If the water's already hot, you don't need a heater, right? Anyway.
Just
I
a little
digress.
sidebar for y'all today. That's
Sorry.
the little sidebar, but this was important for Mr. Roberts.
Fireplace. Revise the focus on seller's awareness of defects rather than existence. Okay, no knowledge option has been removed to align with disclosure standards that we put in place a couple versions ago, and that we just kind of did some cleanup there.
Yeah. The CO2 detector and safety compliance reference has been updated, a footnote to reference the Louisiana statute that says that a smoke and carbon monoxide detector is required by state law.
Yes, which our last version did not have. Also add a requirement to disclose whether certain items, solar panels generators, are financed, or they're subject to liens or security interest, or is any legacy cost that a potential buyer might be taking on by contract with a solar company or a generators, alarms, or anything of that nature. So we try to provide some clarification
I
there.
think that's really, it becomes a trigger point for that seller who's not thinking about contracts they may have in place, whether it be for an alarm system or solar panels. They should be solar panels if they're attached to their home. You would think that would be a key item, but they're not always thinking about whether they're financed and how long that contract is. So this is again another trigger point to provide as much information to that potential buyer, which I think is important.
We did offer a little bit of help with any historic disclosure. Of course, we have the questions on there, but you can attach an additional addendum if there's more historic features, certain prohibitions to what you can build, what you can construct, renovate, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That can be an attached addendum, just like anything else in disclosure.
Absolutely. Then we've expanded the use of the supplemental attachments to improve flexibility and completeness. Checkbox have been added to allow the seller to indicate that additional information is attached to the following sections. So we have section 1 is land, section 2, which is termites or wood destroying insects. Section 4 is plumbing, water, gas. Section 5, systems and appliances. Section 6 would be flood. Section 7 would be miscellaneous. And that's really for those types of items. I know we get the question a lot, they want to put in a, what's the word you want to do? The enhancements? Like an enhancement sheet? What's the word I'm looking for, Rick? But it's not really a part of the property disclosure.
The amenities, maybe.
Yeah, amenities, you know, special features that the home has. That is not what this section is for. It is for these key pieces that do affect the property and should be conveyed by the seller to any potential buyers.
Any good licensee will have an additional sheet that shows all the upgrades and whatnot that a homeowner might have done, sure.
Correct, correct.
And basically, that was just an opportunity to just not overcomplicate things, but make it a little easier.
Overcomplicate, but maybe not so much overcomplicate. You don't have to do those things, but you have them there if you need to.
Overall impact, we try to reduce the seller's repeat form, executing the same thing over and over again. Try to improve the disclosure accuracy. Again, the questions are all the same like, the same kind. We got rid of the not known, and phrase the questions differently. We did that last version and continue that this version. And of course, for lack of a better term, the born on date, when things were put in service, so you can calculate the number of years. If that changes and it just happens to be on a calendar year or further,
Yeah.
you can figure that out.
Yeah, we carried the same theme throughout the entire document, so that the questions are all posed in the same manner to make it a little easier to answer. I don't know why we never did that before, but this definitely, we carried the same theme and type of question throughout the entire document to make it easier.
Again, we were sitting in a room and hadn't figured out why we hadn't done it before. It just, that way, the seller can make sure it's accurate, and they don't have to go back and redo their proper disclosure if it happens to fall and does not sell.
Yeah, when we asked for the public's input on making these changes, we get a tremendous amount. And the staff here at the Real Estate Commission gives us this amazing document that groups it all together. And then we all get in a room and we put thoughts together and produce a document for you. And I think that they do an amazing job weeding through, I don't know how many pages we had this year, but it was quite a bit.
It is.
It was quite a bit on the purchase agreement and on the property disclosure. And when you work through all of those pieces, I think we created one document that's going to be amazing and helpful for you throughout this year.
And again, like I said earlier, just to make sure it's not, you don't think it's like 5 or 6 of us getting in the room and saying, yeehaw, let's change it. No, title attorneys, brokers, managers, regular just licensees who write a lot of contracts, are in the field a lot, members of the public, you name it. We get information from all the stakeholders and even others who are actually using these in a buyer or seller capacity. So every year we bring this to you. We try to make the substantive changes, whether it's dictated by CFPB or new laws or new settlements, what have you, and it's a living, breathing document, both of them are, and we try to make them as easy and as best as we can for you, the practitioner, to work with your buyers and sellers.
Yeah, and Rick and I absolutely, every day, we're in an office every day just like you are, and we're trying to make it easier for us to get to the end goal, which is for people to sell their property and buy property. And that bringing all this information to you, and it's funny to sit in that room when you hear what North Louisiana does as opposed to us on the North Shore of New Orleans. It's
Statewide contract.
Yeah, it's a statewide contract. So when you put us all in a room, I think it's pretty impressive what we come up with.
It's give and take, but anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hope you enjoy it and you use many property disclosures, meaning you sell a lot of properties.
Absolutely.
Thank you.